but Jesse Bates. And for Bates, that's his 6th interception of the year.
Well, it's week 17 in the NFL, and there's 2 regular season games left, and the Falcons are on the road for week 17 and week 18. Today, they are in Chicago taking on the Bears, and it's snowing there. It's cold, it's snowing, it's going to be an interesting battle today. Both teams looking to win, and they have to win to stay alive for the playoffs. We're going to get to all the playoff contention today. Of course, thank you guys for joining us for the Falcons pregame show presented by Ticketmaster. Taylor Vismor, Derek Rackley. It's snowing in Chicago today. Unexpected.
These are the times when you have a away game on your schedule. I mean, guys were looking at this back in the summertime. Yeah. When you have an away game in Chicago that ends up, what is it, it's the 31st. Yeah. December 31st or now into January, you know you're likely going to be playing in something. Right. It could be snow. You could luck out and it could be 35, 40 degrees. It could also be below zero playing in Chicago this time of the year. So Atlanta's going to somewhat dodge a bullet because it's not crazy cold, but it is snowing, and it's supposed to snow throughout the course of the entire game.
Yeah, I know that you are a Minnesota guy over here, but 32 is cold. It's cold. I'm from the South. 32 is cold, and snowing is cold as well. But I will say, they haven't had a game like this yet, where it's been this cold. I mean, you look at the Jets game and the Carolina game, yeah, it was raining the whole game there. But they were in the 50s for both games. All of our teammates from the Falcons that traveled with the team, they said it really wasn't that bad. It was pretty much in the 50s. It was just wet. But now it's 32 degrees. It's snowing. I mean, is that going to affect this game a little bit?
I mean, a little bit, but not as much as you think. Okay. I mean, like the game that they played against Carolina was probably worse conditions than this. Like, you can deal with snow that's falling on you a little bit. It's only the ones that get bad are like when you play Buffalo and you're in lake effect snow. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about like snowflakes that are as big as like a baseball that are falling and they're coming through your face mask. But the fact that it's light snow, if you will. I know there's variations to it, and some people will say, it's snow, I can't stand it. But the fact that, yes, there'll be a little bit of accumulation on the field, but this is not going to be one of those that's going to dramatically affect either side, especially with ball security. Ball's necessarily not going to be flying out of hands like it would be if it was raining. So to me, I would rather play in 32 in a light snow than play in 37 in a driving rain. That's right. A lot different.
It's so interesting because I don't really know what I would rather play in, honestly. I've never played in both as a football player because I never played football. But today is a big game for both of these teams, Chicago and Atlanta. They have to win. But there can only be one. But the Falcons, remember last week I went on this whole spiel. I know it hurts his head to listen to the whole spiel of how the Falcons can possibly get into the playoffs. Last week there was a 7% chance, but now after beating the Colts, the Falcons have a 12% chance to get into the playoffs. Right now they are second in the NFC South. Right now Tampa holds that first spot. Solo holders of that number 1 seed for the NFC South. Listen, they're playing the Saints today in Tampa. If the Bucs win today, they will clinch the division, which of course the Falcons and the Saints both don't want. But if the Saints win today, then that will kind of push down the ball down a little bit further to week 18 with the Saints and the Falcons taking on each other down in New Orleans. And I know there's a little bit more of people that have to win and teams that have to win. So kind of break that down for me, Rack.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's some scenarios that are going on, and Tampa's looking to just lock up the division and lock up their berth into the postseason and get that home game. But as far as Atlanta goes, there's a lot of different factors that go into this. They really need a number of teams to lose. You see in the hunt over there with the Buccaneers is the Rams and the Seahawks. The Falcons really need both of those teams to lose as well, because the last time I checked, if Tampa, the Rams, and the Seahawks all win today, that would effectively eliminate the Atlanta Falcons. So they need somebody to slip up today, and as you mentioned, kick the ball forward one more week. And obviously, if the Buccaneers could lose and then kick the ball forward another week so Atlanta can go on the road and face the New Orleans Saints, try to close this season out with 2 straight wins. But this is kind of the predicament that you get yourself in when you're not able to control your own destiny. A couple of those losses this season where the things kind of fell between their hands, you come away with those victories and you're not in this situation where you're looking at other teams and how their games are going to be important. So there's going to be some important games. You mentioned Saints and Bucks today, Rams at Giants. Even though the Rams are a better record win-loss team, Giants, They're going to have to go across the country, and the Giants may be playing with a little bit more confidence as the Giants at 5-10. Seattle hosting the Steelers. Steelers are 8-7, and then you got Sunday Night Football. The Vikings are hosting the Green Bay Packers. So looking for some of those teams that we mentioned to trip up and get a loss today and give Atlanta a chance as they go into the final week of the season.
Yeah, so there's a lot that has to happen for it to go right, but we're not out. We're not eliminated
That's why you were
yet.
saying the 12%,
yes,
right?
There's a chance.
So you say 12%, and I just throw out all the different scenarios that have to happen.
We're just here for you guys to tell you how the Falcons can get to the playoffs, because there is still a chance. But to make the chance even better, because if they don't win today, they will probably be eliminated if they don't beat the Bears. So let's go ahead and get to this matchup today in snowy Chicago. This Bears team, they've been having highs and they've had lows, and they have a quarterback under center who the people in Georgia have probably heard a lot about since he was, I don't know, in high school. Who is Justin Fields as an NFL quarterback with this Bears team?
Yeah, I mean, still had his struggles, but I think most people would tell you he's still one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the National Football League. And that's part of the reason why the Bears have started to see some success. What's interesting to me, and I love this graphic, because when I look at guys that are in college, the prospects that you're thinking about as first-round picks, one of the first things that I look at is their completion percentage. Here's why, Taylor. I want to see a guy that completes 68, 70, 72% of his passes in college, because it's so much more difficult to do that in the National Football League, i.e. Justin Fields. His most recent 34 games, just shy of 61% completion rate. Well, why is that? Okay. Well, when you're at Ohio State and you get 2 or 3 non-conference games at home, when you are worlds better than the team that you're facing, and then, no offense, when you end up getting into your conference schedule, and let's just say you face a Maryland or a Rutgers or a Purdue. Again, teams that are probably much less talented than you are. You should be completing 68 to 70 to 72% against those teams. Fast forward to the National Football League. No offense, but you don't get the break that you get in college against those teams each and every week. So that's the reason why you see a quarterback like a Justin Fields, like a Bryce Young in Carolina, struggling early on in their career, because everybody that they play against is a professional and they're extremely talented. But here's the thing that you got to know about Justin Fields. When he decides to tuck it down and run the football, he's still one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the National Football League. I'd put him up in the conversation with Lamar Jackson. Maybe not as dangerous, but he showed Arizona last week that he can do that. 9 carries, 97 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and he is leading this team in rushing yards this year, and he's only played in 11 games. So that just shows the type of damage that he can provide when he runs the football, still averaging about 10 carries a game. So expect it when he tucks it down and run for it, and let him maybe get -2 here, 3 or 4 there. Don't let him get 34, because that's when the game starts to get out of hand.
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, he's the leading rusher on this Bears team. But the running back under him, Khalil Herbert, he has almost 100 yards less than Justin Fields. So if Justin Fields is going to run the ball, he's going to run the ball. But I want to say this about his transition from college to the Bears. Here's the thing. When he was at Ohio State, here are the wide receivers, that he was throwing to. Chris Olave, hello. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He also had J.K. Dobbins on the team at his first year at Ohio State. He had so many people around him that were these really big playmakers, and now his wide receiver number 1 is DJ Moore. And then the drop-off of the wide receivers of touches and receptions and yards is massive between DJ Moore and the other wide receivers. So is that helpful for a quarterback to obviously have weapons around him that he can kind of use all the time at his expense?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of chuckle a little bit, because Justin Fields is probably saying, I'd take my 3 that I had at Ohio State, no offense, and go over some of these guys that I have on the Bears roster. I mean, you got 2 guys in Wilson and Olave that might be regarded as 2 of the top 5 young wide receivers in the National Football League. And for Jackson Smith-Njigba, if it wasn't for Lockett and Metcalf out in Seattle, he'd probably be doing a lot more as well. And he's extremely talented as the number 3 out in Seattle. So yes, I mean, kind of an embarrassment of riches, skill position players that Justin Fields had to work with during some of his time with the Ohio State Buckeyes. However, yes, he has struggled a little bit on occasion this year because he doesn't have the weapons. He's going to have some of those today. He's going to have DJ Moore. Cole Kmet was banged up a little bit earlier on this week, but he is going to be active in this. We'll get down to that a little bit later. But his ability to run the football is the biggest problem that's going to get faced with Atlanta. He's about 61% this year as a passer, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks, again in 11 games. There's going to be some opportunities to potentially steal possessions away because he has been a little bit loose with the football, but when he tucks it down, you got to have all your communication, all of your ducks in a row to get him on the ground.
That's right. So last year, let me start with this. This is going to be the 30th meeting between these two teams, and last year, Cordero Patterson broke an NFL record for kick returns against the Chicago Bears. He made a 100-yard kick return. Crazy. And look at this graphic that we have here showing how he ran all the way down. I mean, electric. I don't know if you were there for it, but it was incredible to watch and to see. He now holds the record at 9 kick returns in the NFL. I want to say this because I went back and I looked at how often he's done this. He's done it 9 times, like I just said, but he's done it 3 times against the Bears. He always kind of makes big plays against the Bears. Can we possibly see a kick return today from Cordero Patterson?
Well, I would say that the Chicago Bears, they're going to know that, and they're going to make sure that they kick it out of the back of the end zone if they can. Again, the conditions might not allow that because sometimes the wind blows a little bit in Chicago. Cordero Patterson knows that, played there for a couple of years. But oddly enough, you mentioned still 3 of his 9 kickoff returns for a touchdown have gone against the team that he actually played for, 1 Minnesota, 1 New England, and of course with Atlanta. So there might be some opportunities because it's harder to just pound the ball through the back of the end zone in Chicago with snow, with a little bit of wind, depending on which direction it's going. So there might be a couple of opportunities. And yeah, he's slicked his lips a couple of times against Chicago. Maybe he does it again today.
We'll see. And let's talk about this run game because what they're going up against in Cordero Patterson and Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, and possibly even Taylor Heineke if he comes out of the pocket, they're looking at the best rushing defense in the NFL. I mean, when you look at this defense, I mean, we can talk about Montez Sweat in a second because what he's done with Chicago has been incredible. But when you look at this Chicago Bears defense, why is it so hard to run the ball against them?
Well, they've made an effort, number one, to say that stopping the run is going to be our first and foremost. And they've got some of the players to do it. You look at in their linebacking core, TJ Edwards, 143 tackles on this season, is 8th in the NFL. He's been extremely active back there, running sideline to sideline to make tackles. They've got a talented defensive front. As you mentioned, Sweat's one of the guys that gets into the mix as well. They got a talented defensive front. But to me, it's always the commitment to stop the run. Yes, you got to have the dudes, but does the coaching staff always say that this is our number one goal? And you can see that every single week when Chicago goes into the game plan defensively, they're going to say, stop the run is our number one goal. What are they going up against today in Atlanta? Not necessarily a running quarterback, but probably a 3-headed monster at the running back position that definitely wants to run the football. So it's going to be a great matchup. You mentioned number 1 in the NFL, just shy of 81 yards per game on the ground, and they're 3rd in the NFL in rushing touchdowns allowed at only 7 this year. So they've been very stingy when it comes to run defense on this team, and they're going to face 2 really good running backs and also a guy that's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife in Cordero Patterson with Atlanta. So they've got the ability to keep somebody fresh, but they're going to go up against a stingy defense.
Right. Let's talk about Montez Sweat for a second because this is going to be his 8th game with the Bears. He was obviously traded in the middle of the season. Right now, he has 6 sacks with this Chicago Bears team. He leads the team in sacks in 7 games, excuse me. That's wild. If you look at his whole season with the Commanders and then with the Bears, he has 12.5 sacks on the season. How do you stop the production of Montez Sweat?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you listen to Arthur Smith each week, and they'll ask him questions about what are you going to face? What are you going to face? And he always says, this is the National Football League. Every week, you're going to turn on the tape, and you're going to face somebody that's going to be a premier playmaker, whether it's a defensive end, a tackle, a linebacker, a corner, or even a safety. I'm sure the Bears are talking about Jesse Bates in their meeting rooms as well, saying this guy knows how to take away the football. But Montez Sweat is just the next challenge that's going to be faced for the Atlanta Falcons, and specifically the offensive line. You got to find a way to make sure that all of your mechanics have to be great when you're going up against a great pass rusher. I don't want to get into too much, but anytime as an offensive lineman you step underneath yourself or you don't have the right footwork depending on where he's lined up on the line of scrimmage, that's where you generally get beat. Most offensive linemen get beat with their first step off the line of scrimmage if they don't have the right technique, just because these guys are so good. How else do you do it? You potentially line up a tight end over top of him and just give him something else to run around when he's coming off the line of scrimmage, or you take one of your backs. Bijan, Tyler, those guys just check, chip, before they release to get out. That's a way to help your offensive line, especially if you see a guy like Sweat getting on the edge of one of the tackles. Just give him a shoulder chip to knock him back down the middle of your tackle, and that allows him to kind of recover a little bit. But with those guys, you kind of have to, they got two really good ends as well. And Ngakoue on the other side is really good. So it's not like you can just focus on him, but he's shown throughout the course of the season that he can get to the quarterback. They cannot let him be a problem in the backfield.
Yeah, he can get to the quarterback, can get to the running back, he can kind of get to anyone. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league right now. But looking at this Bears rush defense, obviously we spoke to Bajan earlier in the week, and I said, how do you beat Chicago? Like kind of not what's your game plan, but what do you mean? Like how do you see a win against this Bears team? And he said, if you can get 100 yards against them, you can beat this team. So I went back and I looked, I checked them, and here's the thing: 5 teams have rushed 95 or more yards against this Bears team. Only one has lost to them. That's Detroit Lions. But they had 4 turnovers in that game against the Bears. So here's the thing: if you can rush 95 or more yards against this Bears team and keep your turnovers down, you probably have a clearer path to a win. Here's the thing: Atlanta Falcons, I went back and looked, they have rushed 95 or more yards 12 times. Of their 16 games, 12 of them, they've rushed 95 or more yards. So this is going to be a run-heavy game for this Falcons team.
I mean, it's a great matchup. It's what Atlanta wants to do. They have not deviated from it throughout the course of the season. They're going to be a run-first team. They want to use that to set up the play action and some of the shots downfield, and they're going to do it whether it's the Carolina Panthers or it's the Chicago Bears. Now, you have to have success. And to your point, it doesn't have to be Bijan Robinson himself with 100 yards. You're looking for, as a team, 95 yards or more against the Chicago Bears team, and the odds stack up in your favor, especially if you can get some production in the passing game and protect the football. Again, we'll get to that a little bit later. You mentioned the Lions were able to do that against the Bears, but they turned it over.
Yes.
Obviously, turnovers. I talked about it all season long. Turnovers is the biggest stat in the National Football League, and you generally cannot overcome it when you have so many turnovers. But Atlanta's got to protect the football, but shooting to continue to run the football and have that run-pass balance offensively.
Yeah, so before we get to the keys to the game, let's go ahead and get to the inactives today for this Bears team. Obviously, Darnell Mooney will not be playing. That's a big miss for this Bears team. Obviously, they have DJ Moore, but Darnell Mooney is that wide receiver too. He's got a lot of touches, got a lot of yards, and Cole Kmet, he was questionable. He will be playing today. They're tied in for the Bears. So when you look at this inactives and you see Mooney on there and you see that Kmet's playing, what are you thinking?
Well, I think that, yes, you mentioned you get one less receiving threat, but the fact that they get Cole Kmet, who is a tight end, who has been probably one of their more consistent playmakers back into the game. He's got 70 catches, 678 yards, and 6 touchdowns this season. And their starting center, Lucas Patrick, was also questionable in this game. He's going to be playing. So you got a Chicago Bears team that's coming into this one fairly healthy for the most part. They got 2 of their 3 are going to play in this game. They're probably going to find ways to target Cole Kmet, extremely athletic, a guy that can make plays over the middle, plus he can go up over the top of the defense. So you got guys like Jesse Bates who are going to have to be on their P's and Q's today against that talented tight end.
Yeah, Jesse Bates got 6, looking for possibly 7 today in Week 17. So let's go ahead and get to the Falcons inactives list. Let's take a look at who we don't see, and that is Caleb McGarry. He will be back today. He is active for the first time in probably like a handful of weeks. He's been out for a while, but he will be back today.
Yeah, it's been a great sign, especially to see this inactive list when we had that stretch kind of mid to late season where there were so many offensive linemen and defensive linemen. David Onyemata missed a handful of games as well. That was really hurt the line of scrimmage for the Atlanta Falcons. See John LeGlue there. He actually was a practice squad elevation, thought that maybe he would be active in this game. He'll be inactive. But outside of that, the rest of the guys you see on this list are guys that have kind of been inactive for the most of the season. So that tells me Atlanta's getting their starters back, their reinforcements are coming back, and they have desperately needed it, especially on the offensive line. And we talked about the challenge that they're going to face today with this Bears defense. So the fact that they're a couple steps closer to being healthy at this point in the season is very encouraging.
Yeah, I saw this inactives list and I was like, is this from Week 2 or Week 3? Like, this looks like the inactives that we had in the beginning of the season because no one was hurt. And now we're back to having a healthy line, a healthy team, and all great things to go into what is now the keys to the game presented by Wells Fargo. Let's talk about what all these starters can do to ensure a win in Chicago and extend their playoff chances. What's your first key to the game today?
We kind of talked about it a little bit, but it's going to start with ball security. And we mentioned it, if you can run the football and you can protect it when you do go through the air, or even when you're running it, you cannot afford to have those fumbles, but ball security is going to have to be at the forefront. Looking for the first time this year that Atlanta has gone back-to-back games without a giveaway. Think about that for a second. That's part of the reason Atlanta's had this somewhat of a roller coaster season, because they just cannot get out of their own way with the self-inflicted wounds and the turnovers. Think about the Chicago Bears, though. One thing that we haven't talked about yet, Taylor, 18 interceptions this year. They've got guys that can take the football away. They got 2 guys that have 4 picks. They got 2 guys that have 2 picks. They have 6 other players that have at least 1 interception this season. So even though their record may not reflect it at 6-9 this season, they have found ways to take away the football. So yes, through the air, Taylor Heinicke's going to have to make some great decisions. Think about the last time Atlanta went on the road, a very, very costly turnover in the red zone by Desmond Ridder. Obviously was part of the reason why we switched back to Taylor Heinicke. Ball security is going to have to be so important when you're playing on the road. Try to see if we can get a no giveaway game.
Yeah, we'll see. Because listen, here's the thing. Yeah, you have Jesse Bates, who is an interception machine for the secondary. But when you have a secondary where that interception wealth is kind of spread around, it makes throwing the football not scary, because you're the quarterback, you're the #1 quarterback for the team, and you shouldn't be scared when you're under center. But it makes you think a little bit more of like, okay, who should I not throw to? Because when you are going against Jesse Bates, let me not throw it near him, because he's probably going to try to pick the ball off. But here's the thing. Heinicke only has 1 turnover. He had it back in Arizona when he made that start. And then Robinson, Bijan has had 2 strip balls fumbles, thank you, since the bye. And obviously, during the bye, they stressed those turnovers, not getting those turnovers. And it's helped a little bit, and you've seen the progression of that with Heinicke under center, of not having those big turnovers. But today is going to be a big challenge because of the weather, because of that secondary, on will the Falcons be able to keep those turnovers honed in today. So looking at that and looking at your second key, go ahead with, I was talking about Bijan, so go ahead with the second key.
Yeah, it's going to be the other side, though. It's going to be stopping the run. And we talked a little bit about Justin Fields and what he can do running the football, leading rusher on this team, but we also talked about Khalil Herbert. Interesting to note, he had over 100 yards rushing last week against Arizona. He has one other 100-yard game this year, which basically makes up half of his production for the entire season. Now, he was banged up a little bit as well, so he hasn't played in all of their games so far, but those are the 2 guys that you're likely going to have to slow down in the run game, because that's what Chicago does best. They want to use the pass with Justin Fields to set things up, and then if he sees all those backs turned from the defense, he's going to tuck it down and run with it. Or if your rush lanes get too far upfield and he sees a crease, he's going to take it. So again, you go back to some of the quarterbacks in the National Football League that are so athletic and they can make you pay with their legs. You've got to have all your gap integrity covered up, and you maybe are going to devote somebody as a spy. You take one of your linebackers or your safeties, you say, you're going to play close to the line of scrimmage, especially in like a 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situation. Your job is to keep your eyes on Justin Fields. And if he decides to run with it, you've got to be able to go make a play. So I would expect to see maybe a little bit less man coverage from Atlanta, especially unless Ryan Nielsen sees the moment where, okay, maybe it's 3rd and 16. We don't think that Justin Fields is going to run. Let's take a chance. Let's go man coverage. Let's bring some pressure. But when you play man coverage, you have defensive backs and safeties and linebackers that are turning their back to an athletic quarterback. So you got to be very careful in a game like this to play a lot of man coverage with Justin Fields.
Yeah, when you look at the Falcons defense, 2 guys that have done really well against the run is Caden Ellis and Nate Landman, the inside linebackers for the Falcons team. They've done an incredible job of being in the box and making big plays happen against the run. So the question is, will you be able to contain Justin Fields where he is and maybe get a couple sacks down and push some big 3-and-out situations? So we'll see what happens, though. Let's get to the 3rd key today, which is points in the red zone. Talk to you about that one.
Got to find a way to score down there. And whether it's, I'm not always one of these guys that wants to resort to field goals, but when you're playing on the road, you just have to get points. So if you do get into the red zone, or let's just say you're just outside the red zone, the play calls and the decision making. Again, I go back to the Carolina game with that interception of Desmond Ridder. Once he gets out of the side of the pocket, understand where you are in the field and just know, okay, I got to make something out of nothing. Let's just go ahead and throw the ball out of bounds, right? And live to let my field goal unit come on the field and get us 3 points. Playing on the road, which has been a struggle for Atlanta this year. They're 2-5 this year playing away from Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Got to find a way to get points. Here's the other interesting thing. It doesn't end factoring in when you talk about field goals, but Chicago's actually last in the National Football League in red zone percentage. Now, in the NFL, they only base that off of touchdowns. 72.5% of the time, they're giving up touchdowns in the red zone. So there's an opportunity. For whatever reason, Chicago kind of falls back a little bit, and they allow touchdowns in the red zone. You get down in the red zone, find a way to get points, and maybe in this one, with this defense, capitalize and get a couple touchdowns.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you talk about the special teams and letting your kicking team do their job. Last week, the win margin was 19 points. Koo had 5 field goals. That's 15 points by Koo alone. That's almost the entire win margin for the Falcons. I mean, he's been such a huge prize for the Falcons in years past, but especially this year. And this could be a big game for Koo, don't you think?
Absolutely. Special team. We've talked so much about offense and defense, but we talked a little bit about Cordero Patterson returning the ball, and yes, Younghoe Koo and that entire field goal unit having a perfect game. This is one of those where, like, you look back at the game against the Colts and you're like, it's one of the first times Atlanta played like a really good game from start to finish. Didn't turn the ball over. Efficient on offense, made plays on defense, kicking game showed up, didn't make any catastrophic mistakes. That's what you're looking for. Doesn't necessarily have to be a 450-yard offensive performance where you're scoring 40 points. Just make it a clean game. We stay on schedule, we protect the football. Sometimes it's okay to punt. Just remember, it's okay to punt and play field position sometimes as long as you don't turn the ball over and give them a short field.
Okay, so you brought up 40 points, and I'm going to bring this up because we're going to switch over to college football right now. I don't know if any of you guys watched the game last night, Georgia FSU. Big
40.
win, 60 points.
60.
60 win margin over here with the points. It's like the largest win margin ever.
Yeah.
The Georgia Bulldogs beat their own record, which they set last year in the national championship against TCU. But obviously, FSU and Georgia were both snubbed, if you will, from the college football playoff. But big playoff coming in the New Year's Six. Who do you think? Who's your last 2 teams, and who's going to win?
Oh gosh, we're kind of talking about. We're going to see a feature where the guys are going to tell us a little bit about this. I hadn't really thought about it a ton, just because like the bowl season has been a snoozer up to right now.
Did you see the Pop-Tart Bowl?
Every year,
that Pop-Tart,
no
it's
offense,
incredible.
but every year these title sponsors change, and you're like, I don't even know what it's called anymore. I just want to know where it's at and who's playing in the game.
Incredible.
Let's see. I like Alabama just because of the confidence that they're playing with, and I'll go with Bijan in Texas.
Okay. I actually like Texas too. To me, anyone but Bama, in my opinion. Okay, as a Georgia Bulldog, anyone but Bama. But for me,
why
the national championship was the Pop-Tart Bowl. That was the best bowl I've ever seen. Pop-Tart comes down in a toaster, and they ate the Pop-Tart. It was electric. Anyway, we asked the players this week who they think will make it to the college football national championship and who will be the reigning national champion.
Spain without the S.
UCF Knights. You know who I got. Roll Tide or get rolled over, man. Yeah. You can.
Texas. Hope all 4 teams lose.
Wake Forest on 3. 1, 2, 3. Wake Forest.
Texas and Michigan.
Prediction. 38. Texas. 20. Washington. And for the championship, I got us against Alabama. Rematch. I got us 40. I got Alabama 28. Hey. You know my boy here is the greatest lineman of all time. The greatest lineman of all time. And he currently went to Washington. And that's still going to be an L.
Alabama beats Michigan. Texas beats Washington. Bama gets his rematch. Kills Texas. Save him for the win.
Pac-12.
Orange down. Washington, yeah, you pretty good this year. And Alabama, it's not a good look for you. 4? Not a good look.
Georgia.
I ain't even gonna
Even
lie.
the camera rolls.
I went to UNC, so you know. As far as ACC goes, Florida State stood on business all year. Y'all did them dirty. That's crazy. I'm a North Floridian guy. My cousin, sister went to FSU. That's crazy how y'all did that. Crazy.
Y'all going to come back and tell me I was right.
Bam and Michigan.
Wait, come to the camera. There you go.
Michigan sucked.
Did we-
All that fluffy shit they did all year, this sucked. Bam, we're gonna clean them. I got Texas, so I'm gonna have a Bam Texas rematch.
I got the exact opposite. I got Michigan beating Bama decisively. And I think it's going to be a really good ball game, but I think the Washington quarterback is going to surprise some people.
He is fluffy.
And they're going to find a way to win the ball game late. And then when they play against each other, I think Washington might win it all.
Just mark my word, I told y'all what was going to happen.
You said that all year, though.
Okay, did Bajan say 40 points against Alabama?
Confident in his boys.
Did I hear that correctly?
I think so.
I don't know that anyone this year, I don't know that that's possible to score 40 points against Alabama. It's going to be really fun bowl games.
That was fun
on New
too.
Year's.
I learned some new lingo that a college football team or players can be fluffy.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not a good look if you're fluffy, apparently.
No.
Wouldn't want to be called that. And then also, I can't remember who it was, but talking about Florida State, rough timing on that one.
Rough timing. Rough.
Maybe if it would have happened 2 days ago.
Oh my God. Didn't even get a touchdown. Whoops. Anyway, Happy New Year's to you guys. We hope you all have a great time ringing in the new year. Hopefully the Falcons can beat the Bears today to stay alive in their playoff hopes, but that's all happening just in a few minutes in Chicago. Enjoy the game.